I come from a pretty big family. I'm one of 6 kids. My name is Gabriel. I was born in 1996. I was born in the city of Chicago, and that's where I spent a few years there with my family. That's where we grew up for a little bit. I remember we had a small convenience store. So it was like a convenience store in the front, and then our house was in the back. And so that's basically where I grew up. And I remember we had like the collection of all like the Disney movies that were out at that time. And I remember really watching them. And I think my favorite was like the Robin Hood movie. And so I'd buy my little bow and arrow from the Dollar Tree, and I'd go around and I'd set up little targets and I'd shoot it down and stuff. And then I'd go into the store. I'd walk in there like I owned the place, and I'd just grab some stuff and I'd go back and eat my snacks. When I was in like halfway through kindergarten, my parents, they saved up enough and we moved out into the suburbs, so about an hour away from the city. And when we got there, it was different. It was different to get used to. It was just more peaceful, more calm. It was quieter. I remember we moved into a new house, and it was a newer subdivision, so there were still open lots. And as we grew up there, houses were being built, so different people started to move in, and we had a cul-de-sac right out in front. And so I grew up there playing soccer and baseball and basketball and riding my bike around, and that's really what we did. We moved into it was a growing subdivision. It was a newer subdivision, and there were still lots open, so houses were being built. The house we bought was the smallest house in the neighborhood, and it was funny because we were one of the bigger families. And then my little brother was born, and we were the biggest family. We were the biggest family in the neighborhood in the smallest house. When we grew up, it was a pretty peaceful place. We could ride our bikes around. We had a cul-de-sac out front, so we'd play soccer, we'd play baseball or basketball with the kids there. And when my little brother was born and the family started to get really big when we were already 6, tight. It was tight. The space was tight. And my parents decided, you know what? It's time to do an addition on the house. We got to make it bigger. And so the plan was we were going to knock down the garage, we were going to extend it back, and then we were going to build on top of that. And this was during the summer. It was going to be towards the end of the summer. And so during the summer, I think to keep me busy, my dad gave me a pretty big assignment. He took me out back, and he brought a shovel, and he showed me, he's like, we need to dig the foundation right here, like this and like this. All right? Because when we put the cement, it's going to go all in here, and then we're going to be able to build on the house, on that foundation. And he's like, so you're going to dig it every day. What? I'm going to dig the foundation with a shovel? Are you kidding me? I thought we were going to get one of those little machines that like comes in and like takes out like a little crane sort of thing. Like, nope, you're going to dig it. Like, bueno, está bien. Okay. So every day I got up super early when it was still like nice and shady outside, because when the sun was out, it was just so hot. And I started digging. And I started digging and digging and digging and digging and digging and digging. And at first it was kind of fun, and then after a few days I was like, this is getting really, really boring. Really, I don't want to do it anymore. But it was cool. It taught me how to work. And I think one day my neighbors even came out and helped me, and my sisters would help me and stuff, and it was pretty fun. Growing up, on the side, my dad would work to flip houses. You know, on the inside and outside, make repairs, stuff like that. And I would go and I would work with him. You know, so I got a lot of experience doing that, and it was pretty cool being able to learn those handyman skills. I did everything from, you know, tearing down, putting up drywall, like framing. I was actually really good. I really liked putting down ceramic tile. It was fun. We even did a few roofs. That was pretty cool, and that kind of taught me how to work. You know, I was still pretty young, but it showed me how to work and how to work even when I didn't want to. And I think that translated into my schooling. I saw school as something good and sometimes fun. I think every parent has their own techniques and their ways to discipline their kids. My mom had one technique that was really funny growing up. Whenever my sisters and I would be fighting, she'd come in and say, you guys want to fight? You want to fight? Hug each other right now, right here. Hug each other right now. What? We're fighting. Why are we going to hug each other? Exactly. Hug each other right now. I don't want to hug her. Hug her? Okay, fine. So I'd hug my sister, and, you know, my sister would hug me back, and we'd be there like, my mom would just stop it. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. And my mom would leave us there, wherever we were, in the middle of the room, in the corner, wherever. And we would have to hug each other until we stopped fighting. And I think when my mom realized that there wasn't any noise for a long time, then she'd come and be like, "Are you guys done fighting?" "Yes." "All right, you can stop hugging each other." Finally. Growing up, my family, my parents, we really loved road trips. My mom was totally against flying, but we really did love road trips. So every so often we would have a road trip. We'd load up the car, load it up with blankets, food, clothes, and we'd just go. We went to different places twice. We went to Mexico. We went all the way to Mexico to visit my dad and where he grew up and the ranch that he's from. We also went to New York. I think one of my favorites was pretty close. On the west side of Illinois, we have the Mississippi River. And near the Mississippi River, there's a small town, a historical town of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's called Nauvoo. And it's about 4.5 hours if my mom is driving and 5 if my dad's driving. And I loved it. I loved going there. It was just such a beautiful place. You could feel a peace when you went there, just seeing the things that happened. And I remember taking a tour there. There are a couple missionaries, so older missionaries that are there, and basically what they do is they kind of just give you a tour and teach you and show you what members of the church used to do back in those days when they were there. And I really loved every year I would go, and I'd be super happy because I'd always go and I'd want to get a ring. There was a blacksmith there, and they would show us how they did some blacksmith work, and every year they'd give you a ring. They said, "Oh, go pick a ring." It's this cool little ring, and so every year I'd come home with one just a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. And they also had in the summer a pageant there, sort of like a musical acting sort of thing where they sing and kind of show a brief history of the church and what it is, and I really, really loved that. Another thing we loved to do growing up was camping. I really loved camping, but it was kind of cheating. It wasn't like camping out in the boonies. It was cheating. We had pools, we had restrooms, showers, we had mini golf, there was water slides and stuff like that. It was called Yogi Bear. It was about an hour and a half from my house, but I loved it. I loved going there. So every year we'd go, and the first few years we had this really big tent because there were a ton of us, right? So we had this really big tent, but then later we got a pop-up, and we would attach it to the back of the Suburban, and we'd head out. I remember the rule was when we get there, we check in, and everything has to be set up before we can go to the pool. So everything has to be set up. And so we'd get there, and all of us kids, we'd like working super hard like to set everything up and have everything in place, and then we'd go and we'd change, and we'd find a place to change, and we'd change into our swimsuits, and we'd be like, "Okay, can we go to the pool now?" "Okay, we can go to the pool now." And so we'd all run over there and to see who was the first one that got in the pool, and every year it was basically a competition to see who jumped in the pool first. In first grade, I met a kid his name was Nathan, and he played soccer. And I said, "What, you play soccer?" "I like soccer. I want to play soccer. Where do you play soccer?" He said, "Oh, I play it here. It's pretty close to my house." I was like, "How do I sign up?" "I don't know." It's like, "Can your mom talk to my mom?" "Yeah, my mom can talk to your mom." "Okay, cool." So his mom talked to my mom, and she kind of let my mom know, "Oh, you go here and here, and this is how you sign up." And so I signed up for rec soccer. And it was pretty fun because I played with the kids that went there to my elementary school. We were always, every year, basically on the same team. My first year, we were the Dolphins. We had some super cool blue jerseys. Really, really nice blue. I love those jerseys. And I was awful. I was so bad at soccer. I was not good at all. And I remember my mom wasn't really into it. She didn't really like it that much, just probably because I wasn't getting any good at it. But I remember every time I would get close to the goal, I would try to shoot the ball, and somehow I ended up on the ground. Somehow I always fell, and it would just happen over and over and over again. Until one day, my coach, he came up to me, he pulled me aside, and he said, "Gabe, listen, every time you take a shot, if you fall on the ground, you owe me a quarter." I said, "A quarter? 4 quarters? That's $1. I don't have $1. And so I had that in my mind. So we went back to playing, and I never fell after that. I never fell. The next year, we were the Tigers, I think. And I remember like I was playing and I was like, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. And I just kicked the ball as hard as I could and I scored. And I was like, whoa, that's awesome. And I could hear my mom whistling. She was cheering so loud, just her whistle super loud, and everyone can recognize her whistle. And I was like, oh yeah. And I think there is when I really started to pick it up. I like really enjoyed it, and I practiced a lot, and I started to get pretty good, and every season I would score a lot of goals, and it was really fun. And my parents would be there, my siblings would come, my mom would always have the camcorder, and she'd always record me. And growing up, we did a lot of home videos in our home, like whether we went on a road trip or Christmas, there was always home videos, and I really appreciate that, because now I can look back and watch those and see myself, as I grew up, and see myself with my big teeth that I eventually grew into, and it was so fun. It was basically that was my favorite thing to do growing up, was playing soccer. My first bike was a blue bike, super cool. When I first got it, I thought it was the coolest bike ever, and I rode that thing everywhere. When I got older, I felt like my legs just went so fast. It's like, I need a bigger bike. I'm a big boy. I'm a growing boy. I need a bigger bike. So I asked my parents, like, hey, can I get a bigger bike? Like, well, you're still good with that one. Man, I want a bigger bike. I want one of those, like, BMX bikes. So I thought, man, I need to get me a bike. What do I do? And in my neighborhood, I think a few days in the summer, the whole city has garage sales. Everyone has their garage sale. Everyone puts all their stuff out, and you walk around with a few bucks, see what you can find. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to sell my bike in the garage sale. So I cleaned it up. I put some armor on the tires, made it look really nice. I cleaned the seat, just made it look really nice and shiny. And I put it out there, right close to the sidewalk, so everyone could see that I was walking by. And I remember this kid from the neighborhood, he was walking around with his aunt or his mom or something, and he saw my bike, and he was like, whoa, that bike is nice. It's a nice bike. I was like, mm-hmm. And his aunt asked my mom, well, how much is it? And my mom looked at me, and I was like, $50. And that was highball for me. I thought, $50? I've never even had $50 in my pocket. It's like, $50. I could see her like, oh man. And he bought the bike. So she bought the bike, and so I had $50 in my pocket, and that with a little bit of other money that I had saved up, I went to the store that week, and I got myself a new bike. A really nice, like, BMX looking sort of bike with the pegs on the front and the back, and I didn't even know what they were for at that time. I just would give people rides. You need a ride? I got you. And I think that's where I got into buying and selling stuff. Like, I remember electronics, whatever I could get my hands on. If someone gave it to me, or if I bought it from someone, I made an eBay account. I would go online and just like sell stuff online, whether it was longboards or airsoft guns, whatever it was cool at that time, and I'd buy it and sell it for more and make money like that. And that's how I had, a little bit of pocket money to go to the movies or do stuff like that. I loved sports. Soccer, growing up, that was like my main sport. It was my main sport. And when I got to middle school, I started playing club soccer, like travel soccer. I just liked the competitiveness. It was a little bit more competitive. We traveled around. We played other teams from out of town, and that was really fun. And we trained basically every day. Sometimes we did have Sunday games, and I think that was a good lesson for me, because I grew up knowing that Sunday was a special day. I learned Sunday was a special day. We were supposed to dedicate that day to God, for Him. Put that day aside. We have 6 days to do whatever we want, but that day, it's for Him. And so sometimes when we'd have games or tournaments, I'd say, hey, Mom, can I go? Like, Dad, can I go? Like, well, you can choose. What do you think you should do? I don't know. Well, you can choose. Like, well, I'm going to go to the game. So I'd go to the soccer games, and I would play, and I could feel like something was wrong, like something was amiss. It wasn't the same as playing on Friday and Saturday. So a few seasons went by, and then I got to a point where I was deciding to sign again or just to quit. And I thought, well, am I going to go pro? Probably not. Is this what I want to do with my life? No. So I decided to just stop. And And when I was in high school, I just played, for the high school team. My freshman year, I tried out, and I made JV. And I started on JV, and that was pretty fun. That was my new hobby. I also did track and field. Track and field was really fun. So I ran, and I also pole vaulted. So that was really fun. I just wanted to take on something new. And I thought, well, carrying a giant pole and flinging myself into the air, that seems pretty cool. And it really was. It was kind of exhilarating. It was like a roller coaster, every time you threw yourself into the air. That was awesome. Typically, if someone gave me a compliment or gives me a compliment, they sometimes say, oh, you have a nice smile. I say, oh, thank you. Believe it or not, I haven't always been this handsome. When I was in 6th grade, I got braces on. Yeah, going into 6th grade. And typically when you get braces, you get them for 2 years. And so the top teeth aligned pretty well, but the bottom teeth, they just weren't aligning, so it took like an extra year. I had my braces on for a total of 3 years. So I had them on all through middle school. So the kids I grew up with, the kids I hung out with, I went to school with, they were just used to seeing me with braces. When I was in high school, I went to 4 years of early morning seminary. So I had to get up at 5:30 to be at the church at 6, because that's when seminary started. And it was basically scripture study before school, which was really nice. I really, really loved seminary. And I remember closer to the time where my orthodontist was telling me, you know what, I think one more new wire and then you're good to go. We can get your braces off. So I said, okay. So I said, okay, I'm not going to eat anything sticky. I'm not going to eat candy, stuff like that. And one of my seminary teachers, one day, she brought in a ton of candy, and she was giving, kids candy, the students candy. And I said, oh, no, I can't. I'm going to get my braces off soon. And she said, oh, okay, well, when you get them off, I'll give you candy. It's like, okay. And I remember a few weeks went by, and I got my braces off, and when they took them off, my teeth just felt super slimy, super slimy, and I couldn't stop smiling. I couldn't stop smiling. So the next day, I'm in seminary, and I get there, and I walk in, and I'm like, good morning, right? And in the middle of class, I'm just looking at her, and I'm just smiling. And she's giving her class, and she just stops, and she screams my name, Gabriel! And I was like, oh, what happened? And she's like, you're smiling. I was like, And so she went, she grabbed some candy, and she gave me some candy, and I was like, oh, thank you. She's like, oh, and she jumped back into her class. And that day, when I went to school, same thing. I couldn't stop smiling, and I walked into class. Hey, how's it going? How are you? And I sat down like I was so cool, just, hey. And I could see, some of the people there, they were like, oh, wow, you see Gabe, oh. And I was like, and my head was just starting to get big like that. High school was good to me. I dabbled in a lot of different things. I came to know myself a little bit better. I didn't like biology. I didn't like chemistry. I didn't like science classes. And math was pretty cool, but it wasn't my passion. And one semester I took an intro to business class, and I loved it. My teacher was awesome. Her name was Mrs. Adriano, and I would call her Miss A. She was super nice. She was just an outgoing person, had a really nice laugh, and I remember she'd always have the nicest nails, and I'd always say, Miss A, I'd call her Miss A. And, Miss A, how you doing, Miss A? I'm good, Gabe, I'm good. And I signed up for all the business classes. I took all the business classes that my high school offered, and she was a good mentor. She really helped me and gave me lots of pointers and helped me out with my projects. And my senior year, the business teachers were nominating people for an award, an outstanding student business award. And one day I came into class and I said, Miss A, am I nominated? Are you gonna nominate me, Miss A? And she's like, I don't know, Gabe, I don't know. I was like, come on, Miss A. And I ended up receiving that award. Myself and another person, I ended up receiving that award. It's for senior night, for the senior awards. Obviously, you want to look good, so I went out and I bought a bow tie, and I learned how to tie the bow tie, and I showed up. Obviously, a bow tie is needed in an occasion like that. And I received my award, and I think I learned that in life you have to do something that you love. You have to find what you really like. That way you can excel at that thing. Miss A helped me figure that out. I didn't like everything. I didn't like everything about business, but it was something that I was good at. And it came easily because I did like a lot of it. And she really helped me find that out by myself. I was 15 years old and I really wanted a job. I looked into getting a worker's permit and it just wasn't going to work. There wasn't anywhere close by that would hire me. So when I turned 16, I had one job in mind, a specific job in mind. My sister had a few friends that worked at a retirement home. They worked at a really nice, fancy retirement home close to my house called the Homestead. And it was a sweet job. It was a sweet job because the hours were perfect. It was the ideal high school job. You just go for the dinner shift. You're there, you're a waiter, you're servicing, and it would give you enough time to be able to get your homework done. You can get free food. It was the sweetest job because you're working with all high school kids. It was awesome. And so I thought, wow, I'm going to apply for that job. So I applied, turned in my resume, and I had an interview. They called me back for an interview. I went for that interview, and I walked out of there feeling it's in the bag. Got the job. I know it. I could tell they liked me. My interview went super well. I just knew they were going to call me back. So I was waiting for their phone call. And about a week and a half later, I get a call. I was hanging out with some friends and I get a call. And I pick up. And the lady from HR, she was talking and she said, you know what, we think you're a great guy. We love that you're involved in so many things and that you do this and you do that. And that we think you are someone who's an excellent person, but we don't think this job is for you. We just think you have too much on your plate and it's not going to work. We're sorry. I was like, what? I was kind of in shock. Like, what? I have to have this job. It's close to my house. It's perfect hours. Like, I get to hang out with cool people. I get free food. That's a plus. I thought, what? I'm totally banking on this job. Like, I thought I had it in the bag. What happened? Like, no. I have to have this job. And I was so upset. I went home and I went to my computer and I printed out 12 months. I printed out a calendar of 1 year. I went upstairs into my room. I sat down and I took a few hours and I wrote down every single day. I wrote on every single day that I was available, that I could work. Every single day for 1 year. I said I can work this shift, this shift, this shift, this shift. Put it all together. I stapled it. And 2 days later I went in. I went through the office. I went right in and I went up to the HR office. I knocked on the door. I walked in and she was just getting off a phone call and I just took it and I put it down on her desk and I just kind of looked at her. And she looked at me and then she looked down. She put her glasses on and she started looking at it and I said, these are all the days that I can work. She was just looking at it and she looked up at me and she said, okay. We start orientation in a week. Can you be there? Yeah, I'll be there. She's like, okay, thank you. Thank you. Have a good day. And I walked out, I closed the door, and as soon as I closed the door, I was like, yes, yes, yes. I was so excited, like, I knew it. Yep, got the job. And it was a sweet job. I worked there for about 2 years, and it was a great community, a great place to be, a great environment, and they actually helped me out with a scholarship for school. I loved working there, I really did, and being able to help those people and stuff. It was a really good experience for me. I was an 11-year-old scout, so I did Webelos, and when I turned 12, I got into the Boy Scouts of America. It was pretty cool. I remember doing the derbies and stuff like that. And I was there for a few years, and I remember really going to town, really working on my book, on my merit badges, on my requirements, really advancing. And I think when I was 13, there was another troop that opened up closer, and so I switched over to that troop. And unfortunately, with time, due to lack of leadership, things kind of died down. We would go camping, but we really didn't work on the merit badges, the requirements needed to advance and become an Eagle Scout. So a few years passed, and I think I was 16, right before I turned 17. One of the Scoutmaster came to my house. His name is Scott McMorrow. He came to my house, he rang the doorbell, he came in, and my mom called me down, and She said, oh, this is Scott McMorrow. He's from the Geneva Ward. He wants to talk to you. I said, okay. And he started talking to me. He sat down with me and said, hey, I was looking over the books. I see that you've done so much. Like, you did so much in your book. Like, what happened? And I just kind of told him, like, well, I came over here and things just died down, and I left it like that. And he said, you know what? I really think that you should finish. You should finish. You keep going. You should finish. You should get your Eagle Scout. Do it. You can do it. And in that moment, I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't want to. I'm fine. And he was really pushing for it, really, really trying to open my eyes and see the value in doing that. And I said, okay, you know what? All right, fine, I'll do it. And he was there every step of the way, and he said, you know what, I'm going to help you. I'm going to point you in the right direction. You need my help, I'm here, but I'm going to help you be able to get it. And it was a great growing experience because I had to get out of my comfort zone. I had to get out of my bubble. I had to go out. I had to find these people that were able to help me. I had to make phone calls. I had to do all these different things. I remember I was 17, and I only had 1 year, because once you turn 18, you're no longer eligible to receive your Eagle. I had 1 year to get everything else done. I was 17, and I had to go to summer camp with the 12-year-olds. So I was the oldest guy there, but I was basically in charge of looking out for these kids along with working on my stuff, my merit badges and all the things that I needed to do. And so that was a super fun experience, being able to be with them and kind of lead them and have them look up to me and see me as an example. I didn't want to mess up. I wanted to be a good scout for them. I wanted to be like a good, fun guy. Like, hey, we're here to work, we're here to advance, but we're also here to have lots of fun. So that was awesome. I approached the park district, the Batavia Park District where I live, and I explained to them, hey, I'm with Troop 5. I'm working towards my Eagle Scout, and I'm wanting to do my Eagle Scout project here. I want to do something that's beneficial for the community. So a project that you guys have to get done. I'm hoping to save you guys lots of money. I'll be willing to do it for you. And they were kind of hesitant to work with me because of previous experience of scouts, I guess. And they said, well, we do have a list, but no, blah, 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 blah. And I said, look, I promise you I'll get it done. I don't have much time. I will get this project done. And so I ended up deciding to do a demolition project. A lot of scouting projects are building or painting or doing some sort of construction activity or renovation or something like that. But I thought a demolition project, that's different. And so I got the project approved. I had to train all these little scouts just to make sure they wouldn't hurt themselves. And the day came, and it was in the winter, and it was a gazebo, a big gazebo on one of the parks that they had that they were looking to tear down to get that out of the way for future projects that they were going to build there. I said, okay, I'll get it done. So the park district rented a dumpster, and they had it there delivered on that day. And so I get there. I was the first one there, but it was a really snowy morning. The roads were covered in snow. Plows were out working, but it just kept snowing. And I was kind of scared. I thought, oh man, who's gonna be able to come? Everybody's probably gonna stay home. They're not gonna want to be out driving on the roads. And a few minutes went by, and after about an hour, I saw people starting to show up. People started to show up. And I just felt so grateful. Like, yes, okay, there's people here. They're gonna help me. I need help if I'm gonna be able to do this project. And so enough people showed up, and we just got to work. We started tearing it down. And we got everything put in the dumpster. We organized it and we cleaned up, and it was a success. It was a great success, and it was a great honor to have my Eagle Scout Court of Honor and have all the people that were there that helped me through. The mayor came and he presented me with a proclamation. He gave me a day. He named a day the Gabriel Monarrez Day on August 15th in Batavia, and he said that's the only day I can get away with speeding. And so I said, okay, well, I will. Because we lived in the suburbs, frequently we went down to the city, into Chicago to visit family, my aunts, my uncles, and be there with all my cousins and such. And I remember one day being outside, and my parents were talking, and they were talking with my aunt. And a little while later, my aunt, she approached me, and I was sitting on her porch, and she said, Gabriel, do you believe what your parents believe? Do you believe in your church? Do you believe that it's true? And it kind of caught me off guard. I was young, and I said, yeah, I do. But it really got me thinking. It's like, well, I feel it's right. I feel it's true. I hope it's true. I think. And around that time, the president of the church had challenged all the members to read the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is another testament of Jesus Christ. And he said, as a family, the challenge is to read one chapter a day, so that in a year, you can finish the book as a family. So every night, we read a chapter. Even if we had homework, if everyone was busy, we'd take a moment just to sit down and be able to read the scriptures as a family. And after the year finished, I remember around that time, I had a primary teacher. And this primary teacher was awesome. She'd always bring us goodies, and she'd always have really creative classes. But one day, she was telling us about her experience, that she met the missionaries, and they gave her this challenge to read the book and to pray about it and to ask God in prayer if it was true, if it really was scripture. And she told us her experience, and I remember feeling like, wow, like I want something like that. You know, I want to have an experience like that. And she told us in Spanish, right? Because I used to go to church in Spanish, and she told us, kids, here's a book for each and every one of you. Like, read it, go home, go into your rooms, close the door, kneel by your bed, hold it in your hands like this, and say a prayer. Just ask God. God, is this book true? And he will answer you. And I believed that. I knew that she wasn't lying. And I really believed that if I prayed that I would get an answer. So when we finished the year as a family, we had read it. I said, okay, I read the book with my family. I'm going to pray about it. So I remember one day I went upstairs, straight up the stairs, because my room was right there. And I went in and I closed my room, I locked the door, and I kneeled down by my bed, and I pulled out the Book of Mormon, and I held it in my hands. And my prayer was super simple. I just began to pray, and I asked God, I said, God, I want to know if this is true. I want to know if it really is true. If it's not just something good, but if it's really true. If it's scripture. And I felt so happy. There was this feeling that came and just made me feel warm, like super happy and at peace, like everything was okay and that it was true. And I began to cry because I was so happy. I just started crying, and I couldn't stop crying. I didn't know why I was crying, but I was happy. And it was an experience that really marked me, that I remember. I can see my bed sheets. I can see what it was like outside. I can just remember everything about it. And I was able to gain my own testimony. I really did receive an answer from God, and he told me, yeah, this is true. I had gone through middle school without a cell phone, and I think it was my first year of high school, and I really wanted a cell phone. I wanted to get myself a cell phone so bad. Very, very badly. I didn't have a job at that time. I wasn't 16 yet, but that was going to be a gift to myself. I was going to buy myself my first cell phone. So with the little jobs that I had done, I had saved up enough money, and I did some research, and I found a company that I was going to buy a phone from them and be able to have text and call time. And I was kind of picky. And in that time, I guess the cool phones were the phones that had like a keyboard, so you could use your thumbs like that. Like that was the new thing. So I was like, that's the one I want. I want one like that. And so I looked online and I found a phone. I said, yep, that's the one I want. And it was really cool. It had the keyboard. It was a slide keyboard, had a touch screen. I was like, yeah, that's the one I want. And I looked at the price, and I saw it, and I said, oh man, that's exactly how much money I have. I have just enough to buy the phone, but I haven't paid my tithing yet. And I had learned that tithing was something important. God gives us so much, and he only asks 10% from us. And that was a hard decision I had to make. I'd wanted a phone for so long, and I finally had enough money to buy it. But if I paid my tithing, I wouldn't have enough money to buy the phone. And I thought, oh man, what do I do? It's the one I want. I want that one. And it was sort of like I had like the little angel on my shoulder, and it's like, you love God, pay the tithing. It's okay, do it. And then right here, like the little devil, like, no, don't pay, buy the phone. You want the phone. You work so hard. You deserve the phone. And so I was thinking about it, and I finally decided, you know what? Okay, I should pay my tithing. I feel like it's the right thing to do. So I did. So that Sunday, I paid my tithing, and I was kind of sad on Monday, like, oh man, I can't afford my phone now. It was a brand new phone that had just come out. I was like, oh man. So on Tuesday I got back online, and I was like, well, I'm going to check. So I looked, and they were having some sort of deal. For some reason, that phone was on sale. And it had gone down in price. And it had gone down exactly down to what I had left. So I paid my tithing, what I had left, that's how much the phone cost. And I thought, what? No way. And so I bought the phone. I had my phone, and then I thought about it, and I learned a really valuable lesson. I guess sometimes, as humans, it's so hard for us to let go of materialistic things, especially money. It's just so hard for us. But God, He is good, and when we put God first, He wants to bless us, and He will bless us. And that's the big blessings that come from paying your tithing. Is you always have everything that you need. It was just the phone, but at that time it was something so big for me. And I thought, okay, this is my lesson. I learned my lesson. If I pay my tithing, like, God will bless me. It was a Saturday, and I had that whole day free. I didn't have to work that day, and my hair was getting long, and so I said, you know what? I've been working hard this week. Today is a treat yourself kind of day. So you know what? I'm going to go down to the barber shop. I'm going to downtown to the nice barber shop and get me a nice cut. I said, all right. So I took the car, and I went downtown. To go downtown to the barber shop, there's a river that runs through my town, and there's one bridge. So that's how you cross the river. That's the only bridge that there is. So crossed the bridge, and I went to the barber shop. I waited in line, got a nice haircut. I went back to the parking garage, and I took off my shirt, and I shook off the hair and stuff. And I was just taking my time. I didn't have anything to do that day. So I got in my car, and I was driving back. But the bridge was super backed up. It was really backed up, and I thought, why is there so much traffic? Like, what's going on? And the bridge goes over the river, and then there's this big hill. And at the top of the big hill, I turn right, and that's how I get home. And so I was sitting in traffic, kind of leaning back as I was on the hill. And when I got closer to the top, I could see around the corner that there was a car. And I guess it had just stopped right in the middle of the road. And that's why there was so much traffic. Everyone had to take one turn at a time to go around. And there was a thought that came into my mind. And I thought, maybe it's someone I know. Like, that thought just came into my mind. And then I said out loud, maybe it's someone I know. Okay. I had the music on, whatever, and as I approached the car, I looked. I couldn't see until the car in front of me left, and then it was my turn, and so I went around it. But when I saw the car, I said, wait a second, I've seen that car before. Where have I seen that car before? I was like, oh man, I don't really remember. I think I know whose it is, but I don't really know the guy. I just know I've seen it. And so I started driving, and I was going straight, and something told me, like, go back, turn around. I was like, what? And I looked in my rearview mirror, and the car was still there. I was like, it's okay, someone's gonna help him. And I just felt like I need to turn back. I need to go help that guy. I was like, okay. So I turned around, and I went all the way around, and I came back, and I saw that some guys were helping him push his cars, so I parked, and I got out, and I helped him bring his car over to the parking lot or a gas station. And he got out of the car, and I was like, hey, I'm Gabriel Monarrez. He's like, oh yeah, I know you. I think you know my son. And I was like, oh yeah, you know what? Actually, I do know your son. Oh, okay, cool. He's like, okay, like, can I help you? He said, well, I'm just gonna call the mechanic, and they're gonna have to, we don't have to take the car. My wife's out of town, so she can't pick me up. But I said, don't worry, I'll give you a ride. Can I give you a ride home? Oh, okay, I would appreciate that. So I gave him a ride home. And I kind of getting to talk to him. They were kind of new into town. They were new in the area. His wife's dad had just died, and so she took the other car, and she went out of town to go to the funeral. And I just thought, what a coincidence that I was here at the right time, and that I felt like I needed to turn around, and I gave this guy a ride. Who else would have given him a ride? He wouldn't have been able to walk all the way home. It was so far. So I gave him a ride, and I think I just learned a lesson that day. Sometimes we don't know why we have feelings that we have to do something, but we just know we have to do it. And I think that I made that a goal in my life. Whenever I feel like a thought comes in my head, do this for that person, or some kind of loving action that comes into my mind, like I should do this for that person, or I need to help that person, or I rethink of someone and say, you know what, I haven't talked to them in a while, I should talk to them, I should see how they're doing. We many times are God's hands here on earth to help his children. And that was a great lesson for me, that I learned that whenever I feel like I need to do something that is good comes from God, and I need to do it. And maybe I don't understand why. Like, I didn't understand why I needed to turn around, but I did. And I was able to be there in that moment when he needed someone, and I was there for him. It was my goal since I was little. I really wanted to be a missionary. I wanted to be a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and my parents were really proud about that. And my dad had always told me, you know what, like, focus on school, don't think about girls, don't think about a girlfriend, like, don't have a girlfriend, just focus on school. You go on your mission. When you come back, then you can have girlfriends or whatever, just one, obviously, at a time. And I said, okay, yeah, that's fine. So I went to school. I just went to soccer, went to practice, and I kind of just focused on what I had to do. And I remember there was a guy on my team, and I was buddies. We became buddies. He was really, really cool, and we were buddies. And one time I hung out with him, and his girlfriend was there, and I'd hung out with her before, and we became really good friends. So we would hang out all the time. We'd always make pizza, whatever. I'd always go over to her house, and we'd all hang out together and stuff. And I remember, I'll come back to them, but I remember the football games. It was football season. I remember rolling up to the game with a few buddies, and I walk in, I didn't have braces at this time, so I was feeling pretty confident. I walk in, and I'm walking, and I'm going around the track to head to the bleachers, and I look, and I saw this girl. I saw her, and I was like, wow, like, she's so pretty. And I just thought, nah, I've never seen her before, like, I'm never going to see her again, whatever. And I just kept walking. And time went on, our soccer season went on. I remember one day, we were suited up, and our team was in the library. We're in the library doing homework because we were JV, so we played after the freshmen. And so we had a little bit of time. So I was there trying to get as much homework as I had. I was trying to get as much homework as I could done. Just sitting there with my headphones in, just doing my thing. And my buddy was there, and he was on his phone. And then a few girls walked in, and they came, and they sat at our table. They sat at our table, and she was right there, but I was doing my stuff, and I saw her, and I was like, oh, what are they doing here, And I think one of them was trying to talk to me, and so I took out my headphones. They're like, oh, like, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I kind of just grabbed my stuff, and I left. I just kind of went away. And a little bit of time passed. And then I remember I was on the phone. I was walking down the hallway. It was after school. I had some papers in my hand. I had my backpack on. I had some papers and some books. And I was on the phone. I was like, oh, yeah. My friend, she had invited me to her house. She was like, come over, like, I just made food, like, you can come grab something to eat, because she lived pretty close, like, a few blocks down from me, like, right across the street. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I hung up, and then poof, I just, dropped everything on the floor. I dropped all my papers. I was pretty close to the doors, but I dropped all my stuff. So I was kneeling down, I was picking up my stuff, and then I see two hands, start, helping me, and I'm like, I look up, and I see her again. I was like, what? No. So I picked up all my papers really quick, and she's like, oh, okay, I'll help you. And I was like, no, it's fine. Picked up my papers, and I left. And I just left, and I just kind of ran away. I don't know why I got nervous. And time went on, and my friend, she said, hey, you know what? On Friday, I'm going to have a few people over at my house. You should come. It'll be fun. I was like, okay, I'll come. So that Friday, I go to her house, and there's a few people, and I'm meeting a few other people, and then I see this girl. Let's just say her name is Becky. We're going to call her Becky. So I see Becky. I'm like, oh, man. Everywhere I go, this girl's here. What the heck? And so I started talking to her, and we started talking, and we became super good friends. We started becoming friends. We started hanging out. And as time went on, I came to realize, I think there's something going on that she's not telling me. And the more we opened up to each other, I realized, on the outside, she's so happy. But on the inside, sometimes she's crying. She's sad. And at that same time, I was going to seminary, early morning seminary, and reading the scriptures and learning about Jesus, learning about his life, and learning about how the gospel can help us be happy. I really felt that was true. I felt it, like I'm happy because I live the gospel. I wasn't perfect. Like everyone's made mistakes. I had made mistakes in my life, but when I was really trying to live the gospel, that was when I was happiest, and I knew that living the gospel would make someone happy. And so I felt, I think I have something that I can share with her that will help her, help Becky feel happier. So I didn't know what to say exactly. I just kind of invited her to some activities. I invited her to a few things, and I began to tell her, look, this is what I believe. Like, I believe in this and this and this. And I'd love for you to come and try learning a little bit more. And she did. Throughout that time, it was incredible to see changes in her life. The happiness that she felt, learning about her Heavenly Father and the fact that he loves all of us and he wants the best for all of us and he wants to be there for us to help us through hard times. And for me, it was just such a strong evidence, a testimony builder. Like, the gospel really does help people. The gospel really can change lives. And I could see that change in her. And I thought, more people need this. Like, everyone needs this. I want to share this with everyone. And that was a huge motivator for me to go on a mission. And serve a mission for 2 years. When I was 18 years old, I received a letter in the mail from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And because I had submitted my papers, telling the church, like, hey, I want to go on a mission. And so I got my envelope, I opened it up, all my friends were over. My sister had just gotten home from her mission that day, and I decided I was going to open it up that day. So my parents were there, my friends were over, the people who couldn't be there were on like Skype or whatever. And I opened it up, and it says, Gabriel Monarrez, you are hereby called to serve in Mexico City. And I said, Mexico City? Like, that's where my other sister's serving right now. Like, cool, And when I opened it, I just felt good. I felt like that was the place I needed to be. And of all the world, any place in the whole entire world, like, that's where I needed to go, and that's where I was called to serve. So I was there for 2 years as a missionary, teaching people the gospel, people that didn't know about the gospel or hadn't heard about the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. I was there and I was teaching, the people of Mexico, and also doing as much service as I can. Any opportunity we found to help someone, we took that opportunity to help them, whatever it was. And I learned so many things in Mexico, and I remember I got there and my Spanish was okay, but it wasn't the greatest. So I got there and I just remember seeing so many little restaurants or stands out in the street, selling tacos and selling all these kinds of foods. And I said, hey man, I had a companion. I said, hey man, I want some tacos. Let's go get some tacos. So I went up to the guy and I said, hey, what do you have? And in Spanish, he told me, well, I have... And he said it super fast, like all the things he had, and I was like, I want that one. Like, whatever that is, can I have that? And he gave me that taco. It was super good. And I remember in my mission, in my first area that I was in, I was learning the language. I was learning how to teach a little bit more effectively because I was a newbie. I didn't really know a lot. And I remember one day there was a lady and she was walking with her two grandkids, and we walked up to her and said, hey, we're missionaries and we'd love to share a message with you about the gospel, about Jesus Christ. And she said, you know what, I work here and here, like, come by because I have a lot of questions for you guys. I was like, okay. And this lady, her name was Mariela, and she had so many questions. She said, I've been to this church and I've been here and I've been this and I've seen that and I've seen this and what about this and what about that? And she was just bombarding us with these questions, and I just thought, I don't know how to answer that. Like, I don't know where there's a scripture that answers that question. Like, I don't know. But she was willing to hear us. And one day I remembering a story, and I shared this story with her, and I just shared my testimony. We had given her a Book of Mormon, and I said, I read this book, and I know it's true. And I've received an answer that I know it's true, and it's given me so much guidance in my life. And I just invited her to do the same, so that you can know. Because if we go and we ask all these people, we're never going to know. The best way, and the only way to know, is to ask God directly. And that's what she did. We came back the next day, and she said, hey, I prayed, and I know it's true. I want to be baptized, and I want you to do it. And I looked at my companion like, okay, like, we can do that. We can help you. And it was just an awesome experience at the end of my mission. I was close to that area, and to be able to see her and see her so happy and see this light about her, I just thought, wow, that is the gospel. That's what the gospel does for us. When I got to my second area, and it was a huge area, it was so big, and I had to learn all the routes, how to take, which bus to take to get to this spot and this spot and this spot. And this place was called El Molinito, and it went up and down. There was hills everywhere, so many hills, and it was a place where there were tons and tons of people just kind of jam-packed together. So it was a pretty cool experience. And I remember one day we got home at 8:59. And as missionaries, we have a lot of roles, and I believe that being obedient to these rules will bring blessings. Like, if we were obedient, if we did things right, God was going to help us find people who wanted to know a little bit more about the gospel. And the rule was, we work and we get home at 9 o'clock. After 9, we're allowed, we can go home. And right next to our house, there was a little store. There was a little store, and so that's where we'd buy bread, or if we wanted snacks or juice or something like that, that's where we'd buy that. So we went into the store, and I looked at my companion, and I was like, you hungry? Like, no, I'm not hungry either. We went up to the door, and I pulled out the keys, and I looked at my watch, and I said, you know what? It's 8:59. Let's talk to 2 more people. Look, we're going to go up these steps, and we're just going to talk to whoever we see. Then we'll come home. What do you say? He's like, okay. So that's what we did. We walked up the steps, and we contacted a few people on the street, and we saw this family, a guy, his wife, and their baby. So we went up to them, we talked to them, and they were so receptive, and they said, you know what? Like, yeah, we live right here. Come to our house tomorrow. We'll be here after 6. Can you come? Like, yeah, we'll come. So we came, and these people were so ready. They were looking in their lives. They said, you know what? We haven't felt full. We haven't felt like our thirst for more knowledge has been quenched. We want to know. There's something missing in these other places that we've been to. Like, please teach us. And we began to teach them, and they were just so ready. They were so prepared. They said, this is what we've been looking for. We know this is true. Like, this is what we've been praying for. And they were both baptized. And it was a good lesson for me just about obedience. If I had gone into that house 1 minute early, it's only 1 minute. But because we were obedient, because we said, no, you know what, no, we're going to do things right, we were able to find them. We were able to find them, and we crossed paths, and we were able to help them. And it was a great lesson for me that I know that when we're obedient, God will bless us, always. That's the truth, and it will never change. In my last area, I had, a few months left. I was close to pushing 2 years, and so I knew it was almost time to go home. And I was saving up to hopefully get a nice tie for my dad, and get a nice suit, a new suit or something like that. But my shoes were ripping. My right shoe was basically opening, and my toes were hanging out. And so I said, well, I had invested a lot of money in those shoes, hoping that they would last me a long time. But unfortunately, I had to use that money that I had saved up to buy new shoes. Previous to that, I remember one time we did exchanges. So I was working with a new missionary, and it was raining. It was pouring down that day. It was just pouring down. It was close to the night. It was basically time to go home, and we were trying to flag down a taxi. And all the taxis were just full because it was pouring rain. So we were standing under a tree just getting soaked, and finally a taxi pulled up, and it was green, so we waved it down, and we just jumped in. We opened the door, and we just jumped in. And I remember sitting on something, and I said, what is this? Like, so I reached under me, and I pulled out something out, and it felt metallic and nice and smooth, like cold, because it was dark. And then I realized, oh, it's an iPad, you know. So my companion, he jumped in, and I turned it on, and I could tell from the background it had to be probably a girl's iPad. And so I looked at him and I said, look what I found. Like, what do we do? I said, I don't know. So I thought, and I said, taxi driver, where was the last place you dropped off a passenger? He's like, well, why, did they leave something? Yeah, they left a personal item. I'd like to return it to them. Could you take us to that last place where you dropped off someone? He said, yeah, sure. So he took us there. He drove us there, and it was this building, and you know, it was a big building. It could have been tons of apartments, and we didn't know which one. But we took the iPad, we walked up, and the taxi was waiting for us, and we just knocked on the window. We knocked on the first window, and this lady moved her curtain, and she was on the phone, and she was just crying, and she said, oh, she just looked at us with a surprise on her face, and she said, you won't believe what they just brought me. You know, and she hung up, and she said, thank you so much. And it was her daughter's iPad. Her daughter had left it in the taxi, and so we returned it to her, and you know, we invited her, like, and we asked if we could come by some time and share a message with her, and it felt good. We felt good for doing something like that, right? And later that week, I was with my companion, and we went to the store and said, hey man, I need to get new shoes, so let's go shoe shopping. So we went to the shoe store, and I was looking at the rack, and I was looking at the shoes, and I was super picky, and I was like, oh, they're too dark, like, oh, they're too bulky. Like, I was just looking at the shoes, and I saw some that I liked. I was like, oh, those are nice. And while we were in the store, you know, it was a busy place. It was in the city, so there was a lot of people passing by. And a guy passed by, and he kind of passed by, and then he like looked back, and he's like, hey, elders, what are you guys doing? Like, oh, we're just looking for shoes. You know, I need to get some new shoes. And he looked down at my shoes, and he walked up to the counter, and he said, 2 pairs of shoes, please. The lady swiped the card and put it back in his pocket. He's like, have a good one, elders. And he left. I said, what? I don't even know that guy's name. Do you know that guy? Like, no, I don't know that guy. And she explained, like, yeah, you guys can just pick any 2 pairs of shoes that you want. So my companion got a pair, and then I got a pair, and I got a good pair, you know, really thick shoes that would last me a long time. And that was such a blessing. Like, honestly, just to have that happen. And I thought, wow, what did I do to deserve that? And I thought, well, when we're kind to others, God is kind to us. And I was just so grateful that, and I think for my actions, for trying to do my best to help other people and to be kind to other people, God was showing me a little bit of gratitude for that, and I was thankful for Him for that. The mission can change us. The mission can change. It changed me. It helped me learn so much. One time I had a dream where I was home. You know, I still had a long time to go before I came home, and I had this dream where I had come home already, and it was Sunday morning. I was getting ready to give a talk in front of my ward, in front of my church, and tell them, you know, how my experience was in Mexico for these past 2 years. And in that dream, there were 2 people that I loved, and I think I was running late for church. I remember correctly in my dream. I was running late, so I was rushing, and I was like, hey, can you help me? Blah, blah, blah. And these 2 people, they kind of looked at me, and they just said, you know, why are you being rude? Like, 2 years trying to be like Christ, and you're the same. You haven't changed. And I woke up, and I just thought, I just felt horrible. I thought, no, I don't want to be the same person. You know, I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to be like Christ. Like, I want to be more Christ-like. And that was a huge motivation for me, without wanting to change. And I think sometimes when we compare ourselves to perfect, we feel like we never make any progress. And I felt like I had changed, but not a ton, right? I was still the same person when I came home, but talking to a few people, they would tell me, like, hey man, you changed. It's like, what? Like, yeah, like you changed. And I just said, well, was it really that bad? Like, no, but I could tell that the mission has changed you, and that made me feel really good. One time a family invited us to eat with them, this elderly couple, and they live quite a ways from the area we usually worked in. And so we took a bus, and we went down, and we got off, and it was near factories. And so we found their house, and we were eating in their house, and just super loving elderly couple that just loved having, you know, missionaries in their home. And as I was eating, I saw, like, in the corner on the wall, a painting of two little doves that were flying. And there was a saying in Spanish that said, "Si amas algo, déjalo libre. Y si regresa es tuyo. Y si no, nunca lo fue." In English, that basically says, if you love something, let it go. And if it comes back, it's yours. And if it doesn't, well, it never was. And I believe that God loves us, all of us. He loves us so much that he sent us here to earth, and he hopes that we return to him. He hopes that we're obedient. He hopes that we keep the commandments and that we make sacred promises with him, called covenants, in order to return. And that's, I think my life revolves around that. You know, I love living the gospel, and when I have kids, when I have my children, I think that's something that I want to teach them, that there is a God out there, that he does love us, and he wants us to come back. And if we do love him, we'll do the things that are necessary to return. And if we don't, it's because we don't love him enough.